I'm interning with the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights. It's right downtown in Oakland. And a lot of their work is around ending mass incarceration on, using both grassroots organizing strategies and also statewide and now national strategies. So kind of going off of what Lizzie was saying about like rooting in our more local politics or political conversation, I can talk a little bit about 2 pieces of legislation that we're trying to push forward and what you all can do to support that. I also want to like put in a plug for our Jail Fight Coalition, which is like super local. So in Alameda County right now, the sheriff has applied for funding to expand Santa Rita Jail. And what they're doing is they'll be building a mental health facility within the jail. And our stance is that you can't feel better, you can't get better inside the confines of a jail. So we've been pushing back against that. And so if you're interested, if you're either like a healthcare provider, we have more people coming.
Hi, come on.
So yeah, if you're interested in that campaign, we can talk later, but I'll be focusing mostly on the legislation for this piece. Okay, so the first one I'll talk about, I can pass out the fact sheet. But you can check them out later. Oh, actually, can I see this? Okay. I also have template letters you can send. So here are fact sheets. So the first one I'll talk about is the RISE Act, or SB 180. And so this it's called the Repeal Ineffective Sentencing Enhancements Act, because that's what it seeks to do. It would repeal the 3-year enhancement for drug-related convictions, except those involving a minor.
Wait, what does that mean? What's
So,
an enhancement?
Yeah, great question. So basically, it's like if I get convicted for a drug-related crime, I serve my sentence and then I go about my life. And then 20 years later, I commit another drug-related crime. I would get 3 years added to my sentence onto like whatever base sentence they had given me for that crime. Does that make sense? So if I've committed 1, 2, 3 crimes, then I would get 3, 6, or 9 years added to my sentence.
So enhancements are not nice, they are
Right, they're
additional
terrible.
punishment.
Yeah, so it's like a crime for which you've already allegedly paid your dues. You're paying for them again. And so part of why this is really important in California is because of AB 109 or realignment. Does anyone know anything? Cool. So realignment was passed in 2011, and basically what it did was it was intended to address the overcrowding in prisons in California, because we were in a crisis of overcrowding. It was at, I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but it was tremendously overcrowded in prisons and we had to do something. And so the decision that was made at the time was to basically take folks who were in prison and with like low-level, non-violent crimes and push them down to the jails. And so now what we have as a result of these enhancements is people serving like 10, 12, 15 years of their sentence in a jail. So like, you can imagine jails aren't really equipped to do that. They were meant to be kind of places where people hung out for like up to a year. And since 2011, we've had people there for now like decades. So that's why this issue is pressing right now. Does anyone have any questions about that? AB 109 or anything like that? Okay. So that's that issue. And after this, what we'll do is we can have folks sign letters of support if you feel so inclined. We're also looking for more of like grass tops leaders to be signing these letters. And so what that means is like organizations, heads of organizations, clergy, rabbi, like any folks who are kind of like leaders in their community, including yourselves. And so right now in the process, it is about to go into the Public Safety Committee, and then it'll be in the Senate Public Safety Committee, and we think it'll pass pretty quickly there, and then it'll go to the floor, which is where it got shut down last year. And so we're hoping to get 200 letters of support, and right now we're at about 50. And so, yeah, so if you want to submit letters from yourselves or organizations, that would be really helpful. And after this I can pass out sample or like template letters. And so then the other thing that we're working on, and then I also, I'll do stuff. Okay, so now, the other piece of legislation we're working on is bail reform. Has anyone heard anything about bail reform? No?
I've heard that some states have gotten rid of money bail or changed money bail sentencing.
Yeah. Why might someone do that? Or why might a state want to do that?
Because bail means that many people who have not been convicted of a crime end up spending a lot of time in jail, even though they may very well not be guilty, simply because they cannot afford bail.
Yeah. Bingo. So right now in our county jail, about 65 or 70% of the people who are serving time there have not been convicted of anything. So they're just in Santa Rita because they can't afford to pay bail. So this bill wouldn't eliminate bail entirely because in California it's written into our Constitution. Just some crazy stuff. So it would significantly reduce the use of bail, and it's kind of like a step in the right direction. So, and it would also beef up our pretrial services, so like things that people would have access to before they go to their hearing. And another reason why it's really important to have people out of jail before their trial is because studies show that people have a lot better outcomes actually if they're able to be in their communities, in their homes, before their trial. A lot of that has to do with their ability to see their attorney, ability to get social support. There's a lot of coercion that happens, especially with the DAs in terms of like plea bargaining, so people end up getting kind of a really bad deal if they are, and it's, what is it? It's like if they're there for even 3 days, their outcomes are a lot worse. So same thing. They're usually the same Senate targets because it's criminal justice reform. It's the Public Safety Committee, and so this one right now we're still gathering support, and the bill language hasn't been entirely released because they're still working on it. They're also holding it because once you introduce a piece of legislation, you actually have 30 days before you have to release the entire verbiage of the bill. So obviously there's going to be a lot of opposition from the bail bondsman industry against this bill, and so they've been withholding all of the language so that they don't have the time to retaliate and respond. So if that makes you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to share a letter of support, but it's like there is a huge coalition working on this bill. It's the ACLU, Californians for Safety and Justice, Silicon Valley Debug, SE, Justice Project, Ella Baker Center. I can't list all of them, there are so many. So yeah, but does anyone have any questions about the bail reform bills? Oh, and sorry.
Do you know like what they were talking about, like how bail will work? How they're proposing making it work without money?
Yeah, so it's kind of tricky. So right now if this were to be put in place, they're saying that they would, the judge would use a risk assessment tool to determine if people can be let out before their trial. And so there are some tools that are better than others. A lot of tools can be like racist, classist, all the bad stuff, but there are some tools that have been less problematic. And so that's kind of like the double-edged sword of it, is like ideally we would allow folks to be released on their own recognizance, which basically means that they sign a paper that says like, I super promise that I will come back to my hearing, and that's it. And in other states that have done that with just own recognizance, they've had really great rates of people showing up at their hearing. Usually better rates if they have someone who can like just give them a phone call reminder. So it's not that people like don't want to come, it's often that, you know, life gets in the way. So yeah, but some people have offered like ankle monitors or things like that, but we are not for additional surveillance for probably obvious reasons. And people also have to pay for their own ankle monitors for the privilege of being surveilled by the state. So that's really messed up too. Yeah, but risk assessment tools. Yeah.
For either of these, are any of like the East Bay legislators on the public safety committee, or do they have positions like Skinner,
Yeah.
Thurman?
Skinner's the head of the public safety committee.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now, public safety actually looks really good in our favor. And Skinner's office has shown a lot of support for the bill, although she like is kind of weird about, not weird. She has her own process for like what she signs on to. So she hasn't explicitly signed on to it, but her office has shared that she's excited about these. Yeah. So it's mostly like when we get to the floor that we're worried about.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? No. Okay. So I have sample letters of support that y'all are welcome to sign and then maybe write your own message on the back of, or if you have paper or want to email, you're welcome to do that. I have like Word document versions of this if you prefer to just like write your own message. But yeah, the more personalized it is, the better it is for us and the better it looks. So you can make that decision. And then I can collect any of them, or you can email them to me at the end and I'll just bring them into the office. Good?
Is that the end? That's the end of your presentation? Are there any other questions for us?
What percentage did you say are in Santa Rita right now because they are just on bail
Yeah,
or don't have bail?
yeah, pre-trial.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe it's between 65 and 70%, but it's like, yeah. So
And do you know what the average like amount of bail that they would need
I
would
don't
be, or
know.
that's like kind of
Yeah.
all over the place?
yeah, it depends on the crime.
Yeah.
Or the thing that's being proposed. But yeah, so the big picture idea behind that is if we can get this passed and we can have our jails shrink, then maybe we can close some jails and then maybe we can reduce the prison industrial complex. You know, so it's like part of this
Yeah, let's do
bigger
that.
idea. Yeah. Which is a longer story, which I'm happy to have like one-on-one conversations about, but yeah.
What is the mix of the prison population? Do they put everyone together depending upon the type of crime that they're accused of? Or I'm curious about the safety of people with low-level crimes being accused of, like, you know, drug level versus, say, murder or like.
Yeah. Jail's not a great place
No,
to be.
no. I mean, I would think it would be a terrible place for someone generally to be.
Yeah. I know, I mean, they have like, you can be in solitary and they have different units, but I don't know the specifics of it off the top of my head.
And the age range of the people in
Well, it's adult.
the. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, which now, thanks to Prop 47, should hopefully be more people ages 18 and older. But there have been issues where, like, because the public defender, the prosecution, is the one determining sentences, a lot of youth are actually tried as adults. And so that's still something they're working out. But thanks to Prop 47, now it's the prosecution has to provide sufficient evidence to show that the kid should be tried as an adult. So it's going to be a lot harder moving forward, and they can appeal it later. So.
Do you want to mention the noise